everybody. This is Dwight Peters from quarterwaters.com, the site for social entrepreneurs, where social entrepreneurs talk about the impact they're creating and share helpful business tips along the way. Now, today with us, we're going to find out how to get perks by doing good. And I have the founder of The Mutual with us, Dan Vallejo. Dan, did I pronounce your last name right?
That's pretty close. Whenever I go out to eat, it's always mispronounced, but it's Vallejo. I'm half Colombian.
Oh, there we go. Vallejo. I suck at pronunciation. I don't even know how I made it through school. But Dan, welcome to the program. Now, I introduced you as saying how to get perks by doing good. You know, everybody wants to know how to get more for doing something. What is The Mutual?
So thanks, Dwight. Let me just start by, I appreciate being on Quarter Waters, love what you guys are doing. I've watched a bunch of your interviews and love the stories.
Appreciate it.
And The Mutual really in its simplest form is we reward people for donating to environmental nonprofits.
All right. So explain a little bit more. How did this get started? What ticked you off, if I could say that, to create this?
Sure. So I'll kind of give you the backstory of how we got to where we are. So I worked in advertising for the last 5 or 6 years. I worked at a big agency, Ogilvy and Mather. They work with brands like Coca-Cola, American Express, IBM, DuPont, SAP. And about 5 years ago, I helped create Ogilvy Earth, which was Ogilvy's sustainability marketing practice. So we were a specialty division within Ogilvy that focused on green and eco marketing.
Okay.
And we really helped brands figure out how to operate more sustainably. But because we're a communications agency, the focus truly was on helping brands figure out how to position themselves around sustainability and how to talk about it and message it in a relevant way that's not going to get them in trouble for greenwashing.
All right.
And it was some research that we did about 1.5 years ago that actually inspired me to leave and create The Mutual. And it was on a topic called the Green Gap. And what the Green Gap is, if you look around the world, rich countries, poor countries, east, west, environment is a top concern for people, up there with basic health, basic economics, personal safety. And just below that, most people actually say they want to live greener, but very, very few fulfill on that intent.
Yeah.
In the US, 66% of the population say they want to be more green, but don't actually do it. That's 155 million people. When I think about the intent of 155 million people, that intent to me represents potential energy that could be converted into action, but right now it's not. We're leaving it on the table. It's a missed opportunity. What if we could actually change the behaviors of 155 million people? When you talk about that scale, you're getting to a level where you could have some real impact on the environmental crisis. So that's what I set out to do, and I began by asking myself, why does that gap currently exist? And I think it exists for 2 reasons, really. One, it's not terribly easy to be green. You have to hop a flight somewhere and clean up a beach or figure out what a carbon credit is and then pay for it. And I think it's in that notion of paying for it that the second and more important point actually comes to light. Right now, being green is not aligned with our self-interest. And at the end of the day, humans by nature are driven by their self-interest. If we put money towards something, we expect something in return. And if we put time against something, we expect to be compensated for our time. Right now, all that being green gets you is a warm feeling and perhaps a tax deduction.
That's about it.
So, yeah, it was around that insight that we really designed the model for The Mutual. And I don't think we're reinventing the wheel here. We just took a really practical approach to solving the problem. And what we're trying to do is make it easy and advantageous for both individuals and businesses to support the environment and get something of economic value in return. And the way this works is, what I started that whole spiel as. It's The Mutual. It's this online community, which is a system of 3 parts. You have individual members like you or I, the 5 environmental nonprofits that we're partnering with, and partner businesses, which could be anyone from the bodega down the street to Walmart or Facebook.
How many nonprofits you have signed up? So, matter of fact, before I even ask that, congratulations! You just launched on Monday, December the 19th. How many nonprofits do you have signed up?
We have 5 nonprofits signed up.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm just going to try. Got my earphones.
All right, there we go.
I was just getting a little bit of pickup. So we actually spent a lot of time and did a lot of due diligence choosing environmental.
Now I'm getting the echo. Let's see.
Is that you or me?
Like I can hear the echo from you, and I can hear myself echoing.
All right, let me put my earphones back in.
All right.
Better?
Yeah, yeah. No echo on my end. Maybe it's my microphone. Let me turn it down a little bit. All right, cool. So you said that you have 5 nonprofits so far signed up. And how many businesses have you been able to partner with?
Uh, we've signed up about 50 businesses, and
Awesome. All right.
I'm surprised that we've signed up as many as we did in the time frame because we basically started signing businesses up a little before Thanksgiving, and that's when especially B2C brands get very, very busy. So I have a waiting list of another 50 that have said, look, we love the idea. We're on board as of January 1st. Because,
All right.
from a business perspective, there's really no downside. Part of what we've done is try to create a co-marketing platform that really benefits businesses. And we took learnings from the daily deal models, which, in my opinion, devalue brands and create these one-time discount-addicted shoppers that don't ever come back. So
Yeah.
I heard a story the other day about a woman that owns a cupcake shop. And she did a daily deal and ended up having to bake 120,000 cupcakes in something like 36 hours. And then she ended up losing $40,000 on it because they take such a deep cut and it destroys their margins.
Where was it? I think that was in the UK. I think I remember reading that same article as well. And she was just going crazy. She didn't expect so much to be hit up so many times in that time span. It shows you, man, the power of that. And you gotta be prepared. One question though, before we go further, for any nonprofit watching this and that's interested in this, how can they possibly sign up? Is it something they sign up, or is it the mutual you guys look for the nonprofits?
So, as I was building the mutual, I went out and talked to a lot of successful social entrepreneurs. And some of the best advice I was given was that, when you're creating an idea, it's very easy to tack on all these other things, and it sort of creates this snowball effect, and you're never able to actually push out a product. So some of my advisors and mentors said to me, focus on one thing, Dan, and launch your brand around what that stands for, and then build once you've established, your brand to actually mean and stand for something. So I want to launch this as an environmental platform, and we did a lot of due diligence picking the 5 nonprofits that we did.
All right.
We had a bunch of criteria. We wanted to make sure that they are using their revenue effectively. They have effective profit margins. And then we also wanted to sort of streamline the nonprofit space for people. There's over 1.5 million registered nonprofits in the U.S., and research has shown when people go on to donate, they actually get overwhelmed and don't fulfill on that donation. So we wanted to pick the 5 that we think are actually the best at what they do. And we picked those 5 for a very specific reason. I spent a lot of time in the nonprofit space, and I love what they're doing, but nonprofits don't play very well with one another. They often will only champion the cause that's important to them. And while that enthusiasm is great, it also makes them slightly ineffective. Because at the end of the day, solving the environmental crisis is not just going to be about curbing carbon or stopping deforestation.
Yeah.
So what we've done is brought together the 5 impact areas that we think will have the greatest impact on the environmental crisis. And we've laid it out along a spectrum from reactive to proactive. We call it the SMART model. Reactive is about cleaning up the mess we've already made, and proactive is about changing the way our society engages and thinks about sustainability. On the reactive side, we have 3 areas: earth, air, and water. Earth is trusted public land, air is carbonfund.org, and water is Oceana. On the proactive side, we have education, which is Center for Eco-Literacy, and reform, which is World Resources Institute, WRI. So I get the question you just asked me a lot: how do other nonprofits get on board? And what we would like to do is, once we get up to 10 or 15,000 members, we really hit scale, I want to actually crowdsource and have our members choose what's the next area that we're going to support. Is it AIDS research, cancer research, animal rights? And then they can vote on the area, and then we can actually have 5 nonprofits compete. So it really keeps the community engaged. It gives them a stake in deciding we're doing that.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds like a great idea. And, you're keeping it interactive. It's very democratic, if you will say. It's not just being passed down from the top. So it is a collective effort. All right, Dan, it sounds great. This sounds like a great idea. Now, bring us back a little bit more. You're fairly new, so I can't say bring us back to the early days because you're still in the early days. You guys just launched. But tell us about the startup of this. What were some of the expenses in getting the mutual up and running?
Sure. So there were a couple areas that were the biggest hurdles to solve. I would say first is, I had this idea, and my background is in marketing and sustainability. I don't have background in tech, design, legal, accounting. So the first challenge was, pulling those resources together. So people I could rely on that can sort of help complement my skill set. And I, reached out to a buddy in an investment bank. He helped me put together the business model, the financial forecast. Once we saw it could be profitable, we shared the business plan with a couple businesses, consumers, sort of did some market research for them. Would you guys buy into this? Would you test it out? The feedback was good. So I was able to raise a very, very small amount in sort of family and friend seed funding. And we used that to go out and hire a CTO. And finding a CTO in New York is tough. You go out to San Francisco and you have the best of the best coming out of Stanford, and the Googles and the Apples and the Facebooks are snapping them up and paying them, ridiculous salaries that startups simply cannot
afford.
So we found a really, really smart guy who was passionate about the environment. So we had sort of the same set of values that we did. And, I think with any startup, you have to be willing to part with equity. So we're paying him a very small salary and gave him equity. But what's nice is when you give someone equity, they're now aligned with your interests. They're part of the team, so they're in it with the long haul like you are. So I would say that was one of the bigger challenges. And then the other was it's taking the leap to leave a full-time job. So how do I leave my job where I'm getting salary and health benefits to getting paid nothing, having no security? And it's really, I think it's just about, pulling the trigger and taking the leap. I would say get as far as you can where you feel reasonably comfortable that this thing has a shot.
Yeah.
And then you just got to
just go for it. Hold on one second, my Skype. All right, so you had your job, you were crunching it out, and then you had this idea, and you just go for it. Tell us something. What is the most rewarding feeling about that, though, right now? You guys didn't take off yet, but you had to feel great about some part of it. When I was talking to Eduardo from Lonesome George the other day, we had this segment where we were talking about celebrating the small wins, and I'm still stuck with that in my head. How have you been able to stay motivated? Because like you said, you left security, you left the salary, health benefits. This had to be scary. How are you staying motivated, and how are you celebrating the small wins in your own way?
I think the small wins is a really great way to describe that. I mean, to be fully transparent, my day every day is, it's a bunch of small wins where I'm really excited about something, and then I'm like, what am I doing? How am I going to pull this off? And it's the small wins that keep me going and get me through. But it's everything from an individual member that's signing up, a new business that's signing up. Getting press to cover this is incredibly fulfilling. We just had Good Magazine and Fast Company write about us, which are literally my two favorite magazines. Very, very little could be more rewarding than that. And then this is not an easy system to piece together. Working and setting up contracts with nonprofits in different states has a lot of different IRS and tax regulation. Dealing with 50 businesses as a starting point is a lot of outreach and ongoing communication and project management. So just the belief from the nonprofits, from the businesses, from the individuals that have signed up, and from the press that this is actually an idea that could work is what gets me most excited. So, I'm in this for two reasons. I've always wanted to run a successful startup, but more than that, I wanted to do something that would have an impact on the world. And if this model succeeds, I'm able to accomplish both of those.
There we go. You couldn't say it any better myself. Dan, how big is your team right now? You talked about you, the CTO.
So right now, the core team, full-time employees, is myself and Matt, our CTO. We have some great sort of interns that are volunteering their time on nights, weekends, helping out where they can with social media, with business outreach, with consumer outreach. And then there's some really interesting sort of PR firms and advertising firms in New York City that specialize in the social enterprise and nonprofit space. And they've been flexible in helping us, set up and figure out commission-based models where we don't need to pay a large retainer up front, but we pay them on the results they deliver.
Okay, awesome. Now, here's a good question. You guys are a for-profit business. How are you going to make money? Explain to our viewers, how do you make money off of this, or how do you generate a revenue?
So in the pipeline, we have three ways that eventually we will generate revenue. Right now, and for the next couple of weeks, there's one primary way we generate revenue. Of that $10 fee to join, 20% of it is actually what you're paying for a membership. That's what it costs to join the mutual. And the other 80% is an associated donation that goes to the nonprofit of your choosing. Okay. So if you want to think about it as $10 a month, we're taking 2 and we're passing on 8. And the way I got to that ratio is, if you look at nonprofits, most nonprofits keep between 15 and 35% to cover overhead, expenses, salaries. That's money that's not going to the actual impact part of the project. Any nonprofits that keep less than 20% are very, very efficient. So I was deliberate in setting us up as a for-profit LLC. I wanted to show we can create a lot of positive impact and be successful at the same time, but I wanted to do that as efficiently as the most efficient nonprofits.
Makes sense.
And then I'll talk quickly about two other ways that we're going to begin to ramp up and generate revenue. And the first is we're actually piloting with a couple small businesses here in New York City. We want the mutual to be an employee benefits program. So when I was at a big corporation like Ogilvy paid for each employee to have benefits. So I could go to Apple or Brooks Brothers and get discounts. And there's a cost associated with that. So what we're going to do is offer our services for corporations to buy for each employee. So, they're paying the money they would have. We actually may be less than these employee benefits programs.
Yeah.
Their employees are getting the same number of perks, even more as we ramp up the number of perks we offer. But it's that same 20-80 ratio. So all of a sudden, if you have a large number of employees, 80% of the cost of them that you're paying us is a tax-deductible donation, which is great for their balance sheets and a huge proof point to put on their CSR report or annual report. The third way that we'll be generating revenue, once we get more traffic on the site, obviously, people will want to advertise. And I always had a bit of a problem with media budgets in the marketing and advertising space. You hear about these exorbitant numbers. Walmart spent $2 billion a year on advertising. That's not actually going to the people on the agency side and the consulting side who are thinking up the strategy. It's going to the media companies and the content providers, the NBC, People Magazine, who are literally charging these crazy, crazy rates just for their space to run that commercial or run that print ad. So what I'd like to do is, keep those rates exorbitant. So let's say Nike wants to run a video with us for a month on the site, and we're charging them $50,000. We keep to that 20-80 ratio, where 80% goes to the nonprofit of their choosing, and 20% goes to us. We've now sort of flipped these massive, massive media numbers on its head, where they've become a force for good and really a charitable donation.
There we go. You talked about something briefly or real quick, traffic. What is your plan to generate traffic?
So again, with that, we really have two channels. There's the content and the messages that we're pushing out, and the content and the messages that our partners are pushing out. So, having spent a long time thinking about marketing in the green space, a company like this is better served doing something that feels more genuine and more grassroots than paying $2 million for a Super Bowl commercial. So we're going to go out there and hit the streets. We're going to be at community meetings, flea markets. Obviously, we're going to be doing a lot of social media like Foursquare, Twitter, Facebook, because it's free. And we're going to be doing a lot of PR and press outreach. So, having come from the advertising space, I have some, contacts and connections in the editorial world. So we're pushing out constantly. We're reaching out to bloggers and writers with story ideas and press releases. So that's channel A. That's the content that Mutual is pushing out.
Yeah.
Channel B, and which I think will eventually be bigger, is our partners. So we are a co-marketing platform. Our nonprofits want to talk about us because it's going to help them increase the number of ongoing small-scale micro donations. So they are talking about us in their own messaging. And then businesses are doing the same thing. Part of the reason businesses have signed up for us is because they can use our brand almost as a stamp of credibility and approval that, they are supporting the environment, not 100%, but they're helping take their first step. So they're going to want to use our logo on their communications, on their site, on their storefront. So really, it's in our partners that will create that ripple effect, and how I'm hoping they will behave as sort of a megaphone for us. So I've created really detailed sort of marketing toolkits that help both the nonprofit and partner businesses optimize their relationship with us by expressing it the right way in their own communications, their own stories.
All right, there you go. Darn it, I had a question while you were speaking and just slipped my mind. I hate when that happens. What else can you tell social entrepreneurs, man, that are watching this program and want to get started?
I guess from my personal experience, going into this, and I think this comes from having worked in the corporate world for 5 or 6 years, it's more important to get a product out than continue.
You still there?
Hear me, Dwight?
Yeah, I lost you for 2 seconds. Can you hear me?
Yeah, shall I repeat that answer?
Yeah, and another thing, can you turn I think your camera went off. There we go, yeah. Go ahead. So you were saying that after working for corporate for several years?
Yeah, after being in the corporate world for a long time, you're used to only sending, everything that is absolutely perfect out the door.
Yeah.
In the startup space, you need to move faster. If your mindset is you have to get everything to 100% perfection to the final, version, nothing will ever go out the door. There's never a final version of the website. You're continuously optimizing and upgrading. I mean, when you think about Google, Gmail was in beta and in public use for probably 2 years before they actually pushed that product live. So I would say get comfortable with, getting stuff out the door fast and getting feedback from your audience and your consumers. They are the people who are most important. Your opinion is less important than their opinion. And the second is be more comfortable with sharing and talking about your idea. I was sort of very closed off about sharing my idea.
But isn't that hard, because sometimes you just have that voice in the back of your head, like, don't talk about it yet. Or you have this false insecurity that somebody's going to take your idea and run with it. How do you do that?
And I think to what your description is dead on. It's a false insecurity. It's not a real insecurity. First and foremost, in a capitalistic economy that we live in, if a good idea works, that good idea will be copied. That's just something you need to get ready and comfortable with. So the faster you can get it out the door, the faster you will stuck your stake in the ground as the owner of that concept and the owner of that idea. So, well, I wouldn't suggest going out and sharing your blueprints or your business plan with, Startup Report. I would say, go out and network and talk to people in meetups and collectives and get their point of view. They've learned from experience, and what I found in New York City, at least, is the social entrepreneurship and startup community is very, very helpful and willing to reach out, make connections, and provide advice.
Definitely. So don't be afraid to share your idea. Tell somebody about it. Even if you think it sounds crazy, it's okay. Get that feedback from people. When I tell people about quarter waters to this day, I still get the crazy blank stare like, huh? What are you doing? What do you mean? Oh, social entrepreneurs? What is that? A lot of people still don't even understand. But there's a growing community out here. I'm in New York, and there really is a growing community out here. So I look forward to getting more people like you on the program.
Yeah, I love the community in New York, and I want us to sort of get up there where we are a force to be reckoned with when it comes to San Francisco on the West Coast.
Exactly. Why not? A little friendly rivalry can't hurt.
Exactly.
Dan, is there anything else you want to share with social entrepreneurs that are watching this program?
I would reiterate what I've been saying. If you have a good idea, now is the time to do it. For the younger folks watching, you have less risk. For the older folks watching, find a way to make it happen if it's something that you truly believe in. And I'd love for people to, follow us, check out the website, sign up if we're offering perks in your region. If not, we actually just pushed out something called the Perks Lab, where you can go in and suggest a business that you want on there and actually design your own perk for them. And we will go out and try and make that happen, contact the business on sort of behalf of the mutual. We're just trying to, build and grow the community, I think, Dwight, with the people that are in your audience.
No, man, I think it's a kick-ass thing what you're doing. I think it's awesome, and it makes sense. And not only that, it's so easy. You're not having anybody go through an extra hurdle to be green or to give back. So I think that's what really that's going to make it effective.
Yeah, and if I could sort of jump to something you and I spoke about before we actually got on the interview.
Yeah, go ahead.
You were saying you were this activist in college, and I think an advisor or teacher said to you, well, Dwight, are you having a real impact doing this? And, it's that insight that I think is so critical. You're never going to, you have the people who say, Coca-Cola should be abolished and go away. Coca-Cola is never going to go away. It's better to work with Coca-Cola to design, plastic bottles that come from renewably sourced plants than from petroleum, and using their supply chains to get, resources and drinking water to people that don't have it, than, just continuously protest and boycott, which isn't going to get you anywhere. And that's what we've done with the mutual. I said this at the beginning, we just took a practical approach to solving the problem. I like to refer to it as practical sustainability or profitable activism.
And you see, that's the thing. You're right. I think there's a time and place for everything. There's a time and place to protest and for activism. But at the same time, there's also a time for, you have to learn how to adapt to your environment and learn how to change with it. So if you have a problem, and this is why I say to everybody, if you have a problem with a company, it's funny because our power is in our buying power. You know, that's where our power really is, in our dollar, where we spend our money. And we still have the freedom to this day to choose where we spend our money. So if you find companies that really fit your vision of how the world should work, support them. Go out and spend your money with these corporations. And also, these big corporations do have special projects where they are trying to give back. So also work with them as well. But this is a great time for social entrepreneurs. There was a report out the other day that 94% of consumers would switch brands if the new brand that they were going to had a social cause, but was also in the same competitive price.
Exactly.
I think this is a perfect time to create a social enterprise where you could use capitalism to definitely get a bigger impact than what you're seeing now. Let me just go ahead.
I was just gonna. I'll tell a quick story. I was at General Assembly, which is a startup resource that any entrepreneur in New York City should be familiar with.
Yeah.
At this great panel on reinterpreting social entrepreneurship, and on the panel was the principal at a VC for a triple bottom line VC. They only invested in social enterprises. And a question from the audience came up, this new idea of a social enterprise, when do you put a cap on the amount of profit that a social enterprise is making? And the principal from the VC had such a great answer. He basically came back and said, why would you put a cap on creating good? If these social enterprises are having a huge, huge impact and making a huge amount of money at the same time, all they've done is discovered and created a better business model, and frankly, it's one that should be copied.
Exactly. Let's take it and run with it, man. So I'm glad, once again, I say this all the time because I truly mean it. I'm glad to have people like you to come on the program, share your experience, and truly let's build this community together, man. It's awesome. This is what gets me excited. And, the knowledge that you guys share is enough to inspire anybody. Let me just share this with my viewers. Nick Kelly, the founder of Kaya Snacks, sent me an email saying, Quarter Waters is a wonderful resource for social entrepreneurs. Whether someone is looking for inspiration or advice, they'll find it here. Nick, thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching this episode and if you're enjoying what we're trying to do here, feel free to go to the donation page and leave anything or something that will definitely help us to keep this program going. Dan, I don't even know what else to say, man. I look forward to seeing you guys really take off and running with it and come back on the program and share some new experiences that you guys will have through that. And I'll just keep up the great work, man.
Thank you, Dwight. Really appreciate you having us on Quarter Waters. It was great.
Appreciate it.